Hello and welcome back to the ministry, and today's the conversation. The conversation that we have been avoiding getting to all of this time. We kind of led a little bit into it, but today we're actually going to go into the sex conversation. So, buckle up your seatbelts because we're about to step into this. First thing is understanding where sex belongs. I've been grateful to understand through a lot of the ministries that I follow and listen to, all of them were open enough to do video content where they talked about sex. And due to the fact that I follow men and women, they were open enough to talk about some of the stuff that was things that we as Christians have a tendency to get into that taboo mode of, oh my God, we're Christians, so because we're Christians, we can't talk about this. Please stop. This is why you have a lot of Christians falling off their walk with God and slipping into sin and having sex outside of marriage because ain't nobody talking about it. We become like nuns, like we ain't never had sex before the second we decide to devote our lives to Christianity, and nobody's talking about the fact that we're still dealing with this. I watched an entire podcast video broadcast that talked about, you know how people sit up there and they talk about this CRM movement? The reason that there's a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors with the CRM movement, which is that Christian religious music movement, that also furthers the understanding of being Christian. They seem to forget that you're human and that there was sexual desires prior to deciding to give your life to God. And with that, it's like it's become this cultic practice that they don't want to talk about the fact that sex is still there when you decide to become a child of God. The fact of the matter is that desires, if you did not give that part of yourself over to God and you did not learn how to fully tame that side of yourself, you have to learn that. God will take that away from you if you ask him to when you're in your season of celibacy and your season outside of marriage. He will take it away from you, but you have to ask him to do that. But a lot of people have struggled, and there is this element about sex that nobody wants to talk about it, and then the fact that if somebody is struggling with it, they find themselves feeling condemned and embarrassed about it because nobody's talking about. It's that taboo topic that nobody wants to talk about, everybody's dealing with. You have a select group of people that did not or don't have the desire because they relinquished that desire unto God, and God removed the temptation from them. But there's going to come a time when the temptation is going to be it's going to return, because when you get into the marriage, God's going to lift the veil off of that and your sexual desires are going to come back. They are. The thing about it is, and we got to talk about this as well, as recently we've been talking about the counterfeits, the reason of the fact that our God ordained spouse is taking so long to get to us. Maybe it's because they know that they can get it when they won't get it from the counterfeit, and we ain't giving it up. But don't nobody want to talk about that. Oh. And they have to make the choice to tame themselves, to come into alignment and agreement with the fact that they don't want to be with somebody that is out here doing that kind of stuff. So because they don't want to be out here doing all that, they have to actually slow down and stop that as well. And that's a decision that they had to make, because they had to allow God to sanctify their body in order for them to come into marriage. But they also had to cut soul ties, break strongholds, do all of this with lust, perversion, all of these types. And that's the that's the hardest stronghold that there is to break. Tell me I'm lying. The marine spirit, the succubus spirit, the incubus spirit, all of these types of things are attached to sex, lust, perversion, all of these kinds of things. All of them are attached to what? Sex. Pride, malice, all this kind of stuff. Male ego, female ego. And it's the irony. The top 3 things in marriage that need to be discussed, and the top 3 things that destroy a marriage is what? Sex, money, communication. If you're not communicating about sex or money, your relationship is doomed anyway. But don't nobody want to talk about this. The church don't want to talk about money, tithe. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about sex. And their communication on it is... And then they wonder why. That's a whole nother conversation. And then they wonder also why the attentiveness of men in the churches is so low. And I heard men saying this, male pastors and apostles saying this. People don't want to talk about this. I'm going to be bold enough to even say something that I said in a church one time, and I became public enemy number 1 when I did this. I was in church one time. It was a prayer service about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was prayer service, meaning if you're praying, you should be able to pray about anything, right? So that particular afternoon, I had been watching a video talking about pastors. Pastors, they're dealing with sexual immorality and certain things, whether they be in the church or what have you. Now, I'm just coming in there, and I got on the podium and I decided I want to pray for those pastors. When I tell you I got off that podium, the fact that I even mentioned pastors dealing with sexual immorality, perversions, lusts, all of this type of stuff, I must have tapped somebody's closet, because all the pastors got up and decided that they wanted to rebuke me subtly on the podium. I didn't know I was doing anything wrong. I was just praying for them. What's wrong with praying for them? Oh, okay. And we haven't even gotten into the marriage part. There is a ministry called Just Emily. She does great videos. She's been talking about the counterfeits for like months on end. And she did a video called Sex and Intimacy, where she was talking about the biblical reference that discusses the breakdown of what happened when the church brought before the altar a woman that was involved in or believed to be involved in an affair on her spouse. And the fact that she had to drink a very strong drink, and if And the prayer over it was the fact that if she drank this drink, if she was committing an adulterous act, the poison within that drink would end up making her stomach expand and destroying her ability to have children. Because she was having immoral or sex outside of her marriage. This is the kind of stuff that they felt was necessary to do in that time frame when you were having sex outside of your marriage. Sex in marriage is very important to God because of the fact that you are coming into alignment and agreement with another person spiritually. And everything that is on them, on their bloodline, and anything in relation to them becomes attached to you when you're having sex with this person. Which also means you have to come to understand. That's why I say saving yourself for marriage is the most important thing that you need to do, because of the fact that you don't know what you're coming into agreement with if you're having sex outside of marriage. Which brings me to my next point. And this keeps coming up in my mind about Dana rated a video recently, and I thought that it was dynamic because of the fact that nobody was talking about this. There are some women that, and I'm going to bring this up, God has shown you who your spouse is. You know who your spouse is, but God's taking too long to bring them along. So some people are operating in their own will and their own desires because the Lord has already shown them who their spouse is, confirmed it about 15,000 times. But because they ain't shown up yet, they're like, well, Johnny around the corner is acting like he want to have some attention to me right now. So I'm going to go hook up with Johnny around the corner. Because Johnny's being very attentive to me right now and husband ain't shown up yet. And what Dana was saying was, there are women that are contemplating getting married and doing a quick marriage thinking, oh, I'm going to just marry him real quick. And then I can do what I want with the sex and all that. And then when my husband ready, because he ain't ready anyway, whatever. So I'm going to just marry somebody else. What the hell is wrong with you? So you're going to marry somebody else just to wait until, to satisfy that sexual desire. First, if you're thinking about having sex and it's so on your mind that you would forfeit, because that's what you're going to do. You're going to forfeit your God ordained spouse because God don't play that. God, and he's like, oh, you make covenant with somebody else? Then I can release them to make covenant with somebody else too. Yeah. Be very careful before you think to do that. This is why we're having this conversation. Because people are ignoring the fact that sexual desire still exists. And the fact of the matter is, the reason that these people are becoming impatient is because of the fact that ain't nobody talking about the fact that these people still got sexual desires. And like those feelings just left. Some people are dealing with masturbation issues. Oh, wait, no, what? Some people are dealing with the fact that they want a cereal day just because they want that attention. Megan Michelle did a video last night where she even mentioned that she has entertained a guy. And she knew that she wasn't gonna marry the guy, but she wanted the attention at that time frame. There are a lot of Christians that are falling by the wayside because what's happening is they're allowing the desire of lust to enter because they're opening the door because they say, well, I'm just date him. Because I mean, if I just date him, it ain't no thing. Because I'm not sleeping with him. I'm not gonna marry him, and I'm not gonna sleep with him. Then I'm seeing other Christians say, "Oh, I entertained them, but I did end up sleeping with them." Why? Because ain't nobody talking about sex. Ain't nobody talking about this. Ain't nobody talking about the fact that people are still desiring sex before they get married. And I'm going to tell you this, if God has already connected you spiritually with your spouse and your spouse is spiritually still dealing with lust issues, you're going to feel it. And you'll know, because if you're the type of person like myself, I don't desire sex like that. I'm good. I've always said I'm good until my God ordained spouse. I don't want it like that. I put my energy into other things. I remember back when Megan Good and Devon Franklin came out with their book, and there's a section in the book that talked about putting your energy that you would use for that into the things that God's trying to get you to do. And they listed out all of the energy and the things that you should be doing with your time to deal with and satiate that delay of gratitude for sex. Now, they mentioned masturbation and all of that in there, which to me, I don't agree with that. This is how the world does things. You should never agree. Masturbation, no, you're still opening a door. Absolutely not. That's a spirit. A spirit desiring to have sexual intercourse with you with your permission. Now you're no longer allowing another person to have sex with you. You're just having sex with the spirit. What? Yeah. I've been attacked by that spirit in my sleep several times. I had to wake up rebuke. And guess what? One of the places I got attacked with it was when I was in a church monastery. I was staying at a church monastery for 3 weeks, and during that time frame, 2 to 3 nights out of that time frame, there was something going on spiritually in that place. So let me tell you, sex just don't disappear because you made the decision that you're going to become Christian. That don't happen. That don't happen. Why did I decide to speak about this after I did Marry Me? God has been giving me a sequence, and I realized it was a sequence right around the time that I started doing The Perfect Match. It's a series. The man gets himself together, you get yourself together, you graduate, you get into your marriage. Now, what happens after marriage? You have sex. But what happens in the in-between? Let's say God is preparing you for marriage. You could have the 2-day marriage, meaning God may connect you with your spouse and you're going to get married like that. Which means, are you going to have the sexual conversation at some particular point? And when? That actually has been a concern of mine. This is another reason why we're having this conversation. You have to come to the understanding that you and your spouse need to talk about sex. What? So what was you planning on doing? And when would you plan on having that conversation? Were you going to wait till your wedding night to be like, hey, let's talk about what you desire in your sexual life? Now that we're married and we're preparing to do what we're going to do on the night of our wedding. Now let's talk about this. And some of y'all are that prideful that you would wait till that night. But oh, I'm a Christian. I can't talk about that. If I open that door to temptation, this is why I haven't talked about it on this channel, because I didn't want to open up conversation about this, because I felt like it would be opening me up to spiritual warfare. Let's just be honest. That's why I haven't discussed this. Being attacked by those types of sexual spirits. But let me tell you something. They're still going to attack you anyway. I've been dealing with fear spirits. I've been dealing with anxiety spirits the past couple of days. So that I'm at a point of, okay, whatever. These are discussions that need to be had. All right? We need to talk about this. When are you going to talk about sex? And understanding that sex is something that's between the husband and the wife. I listened to two perspectives. Apostle Richard E. Youngblood did a beautiful teaching. He did I don't know whether it's a 2 or 3 part teaching called Sex and something. But look Apostle Richard E. Youngblood up for his conversation on sex. And then I watched Prophetic Encouragement did a video that's literally entitled Sex. And they speak from 2 different perspectives. It's 2 women talking in the Prophetic Encouragement, and the other one is the male perspective. But they're both hitting on the exact same points. So, and I've had this article sitting in my content that I actually have been avoiding reading, but I wanted to make sure that I was coming from the right mental space before I even started it, because you have to get yourself in a headspace to even talk about this. But due to the fact that we've been talking about counterfeits and all of this type of stuff, we need to talk about the real thing and sex in marriage where it's supposed to be had, okay? Because this is the thing that's going to actually be the solution to that counterfeit problem. Remember, I just did the word on counterfeit versus a real thing. Okay? And the reason that they've been attracted to the counterfeit in the first place. That rolls right on into this. Meaning, what are you doing in your marriage to keep your spouse's attention? Yeah. Tina Campbell and her husband, Teddy Campbell, used to do a YouTube channel that they talked about their life and their marriage. And one of the things that they did was they talked about how they gave their sex life to God. Oh, what? You can do that? Yes, you can. But most people won't, because of the fact that they feel sex is too intimate of a subject and they can't talk about it with God. You the name number one you're supposed to be talking about it with. Sorry. So, and the thing about it is they were praying before they had sex. What? Prayer before sex? What do you mean? Yeah. Can you imagine as a Christian holding hands with your spouse before you have sex and praying to God, the God that is the third strand between your marriage, to cover your sexual experience before you have it, to come into it before you have it? And I think this is actually an imperative thing to do. Why? Which is also something both parties discussed. There are going to be times that your husband going to get on your last nerve. And he's still going to want sex. That means you're going to have to pray to the Lord. Lord, I need you to give me the desire to want to have sex with this man right now because I am mad at him. And sometimes you might be mad for whatever reason. It may have been something little. And sometimes 9 times out of 10, you probably ain't even mad at him. You're mad at something that happened. You're mad at something minor. But some of us try to use that as an excuse. Do not use argument nor sex, withholding sex as an excuse. That is demonic, and it opens the door to all those spirits coming back in, and they waiting at the door just for you to do that. Remember what I said about there was somebody that I knew that they talked about, oh, I wouldn't have no problem putting my husband in another room for an entire month because I'm mad at him. You are trying to control your sex life. You can do that if you want. But when Sheila from your husband's job, who is his work wife, start texting him in the middle of the night, which you can't see because they in the other room, right? Your husband's in the other room and he's texting on his phone, but you can't see that because you are pleasantly happy sleeping in the bed by yourself for a month because you're going to let him off punishment in a month. Yeah, let me tell you something. There was something I discovered many years ago. A man cheats 36 times, either 36 or 26 times before he actually cheats. All he needs is 26 times. You put that man out the bedroom for a month, that's 26 days plus 4 or 5. You sure you want to put him out the room for an entire month? Are you sure you want to just up and leave whenever you want to go, wherever you want to go? And thirdly, are you sure that you should keep bank accounts with money outside of your spouse that he don't know about? Because that makes you look like something is going on, even if nothing is going on, because you want to be what? Controlling. I'm even mentioning this just because of control. That's all levels of control. You understand what I'm saying? That it's a level of control. You're trying to control finances. What is the issue that brings up divorce? Finance. Lack of communication. That's all lack of communication. Sexual. What? Withholding. You're withholding money. You're withholding communication. You're withholding sex. And then you're wondering why they filed for divorce. Because you thought you was in control. And don't ever get so comfortable in your marriage to believe that, oh, I'm just married to him. I got him under my control and all this kind of stuff. I'm married to him. I got that ring. That ring don't mean nothing if he ain't getting what he wants. Because let me tell you something. I've heard this from a man. I've heard this from a woman. Talking about a man. Men will sit up under you and literally be making plans to leave you. And then you'll be wondering why the second that they left you, within a week to 2 weeks, they done hooked up with somebody else. Because they were moving you out the way. Ask me how I know. I was in a relationship before. And the guy did the exact same thing to me. Was in a relationship with somebody else 2 weeks later. Why? Don't be controlling. This is why you want to give your sex life to the Lord. If you mad, guess what? Give it to God. Say to the Lord, I'm mad in this moment. I don't think I can deal with this right now, but I know that this man is going to want to have an intimate time with me. So guess what, Lord? I need you to put the same desire for sex that he has for me in this moment on me. But mature people, some people aren't mature enough to say or do that. Huh? Huh? Some people just rather be mad and be like, I'm going to put, no. Heather Lindsay did a video years ago where she talked about she was mad at her husband and she went to sleep. And while she was sleeping, she literally saw the bedroom that she was sleeping in and saw little teeny dark demonic creatures running under her bed. And then she came to the realization that that was lust, perversion, all those kinds of the little foxes that could come into their marriage and cause problems. She woke up and immediately woke her husband up and started to repent and ask for forgiveness. Her husband was shocked because he was completely asleep. He was like, what? Do not go to bed mad. And sometimes, if you are feeling this way, sex can help you open that wall up. Y'all might not have wanted to talk, but then the second y'all have sex, you both are in that high endorphin mode that is just like being slightly inebriated. You might be able to talk about some of the issues that you weren't able to talk about beforehand. What do you think the counterfeit was doing? You think that she wasn't having sex with that man in order to get him to talk about things that she wanted information on? What did Delilah do? What did Delilah do? Huh? Oh, Delilah did it, so you can't do it because you're Christian. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Remember, the things that the counterfeit did, they kept your God ordained spouse's attention when they wasn't with you. Yeah, but we too holier than thou for that. Oh, okay. So this is part 1, and we're going to come back, and I want to talk about some other stuff in relation to this, so we're going to come back for part 2. Hold up.